Have you ever lied for no reason? Like a completely unnecessary lie? I have. In fact, at one point in time in my life, I began to feel like a professional, albeit unpaid, liar. One day I was walking outside of the grocery store and the Girl Scouts were off to the side selling cookies. And instead of saying, "No, thank you," I came up with this elaborate reason why I couldn't possibly buy cookies. And oh darn, if only you had caught me a few hours earlier. By the time I got to my car, I was filled with shame. Why did I just do that? Why do I keep doing that over and over the most ridiculous things? It took some time for me to explore this, to figure it out. And then I realized that for the first 2 decades of my life, as a victim of child abuse, sexual assault, and domestic violence, lying, for me, was a place of safety. You see, I realized that every single time I had to lie, it was for protection, for preservation. By the time I was 22 years old, I had 3 children and was widowed. I'd been a teen mom and a teen wife. I'd experienced so much trauma in those first 22 years that it made sense that I had learned to lie. It made sense that I had other things that I was doing as well that I was carrying a lot of shame for. One day I realized I really could not continue to carry the weight of this shame. But just deciding to not carry that shame wasn't going to be enough for me. I needed to do something because I kept turning this question over and over in my mind. Why am I carrying this shame for things that help me survive? You see, as victims of these types of traumas, there are a lot of things that we have to do, or a lot of things that we have done in the name of survival. So one night I was watching one of my favorite reality TV shows, and the contestants were talking about building their resume around the things that they had done to get to the end of the show. Even when those behaviors that they used weren't necessarily okay. I thought, okay, that's a great idea. Because it sounded like they were flipping their experiences into something new. Even though those behaviors weren't positive, they were showing them in a positive light. Okay. It made me think about how when we have to create our resume in life for our jobs, right? And we have to look at the experiences that we've had in our lives and make them sound professional. It made me think of all the times I had been a stay-at-home mom and had all these unattractive gaps in my work history. But when I really started to think about it, as a stay-at-home mom, I had gone from personal assistant to CEO, right? I had done budgeting. I had done scheduling. I could adapt in any circumstance. Okay, so if I can move that into a resume and make it look like I could be a very valued employee, could I do the same thing with the behaviors and tactics I used to survive my trauma? Absolutely. So here's what I did. I started by really getting honest with myself. I started writing down every single thing that I'd ever felt shame around. Lying, hyperindependence, and overthinking. Those were my top 3, although not the only ones, of course. But those were things that I had had to do to survive. Let me introduce you to what I call the survivor's resume. It's taking those behaviors and tactics that we use to survive and flipping them on their head. We're stripping away that shame and finding the strength that lies beneath that. So let's take the lying. As I said, was lying everywhere. I felt like I couldn't even answer the phone without lying about something. Nope, Angela's not here. I'm not Angela. It was reaching that point of I couldn't even be honest with myself. But when I flipped that over and started looking at what that meant for me, I realized that lying as a strength means I'm incredibly creative. I can think on my feet. I can keep moving words even as I judge the situation around me. I can make something happen. I had to lie because that was the life I lived. Whether I was lying about where I'd been, even if it was innocent, or how I was feeling, I lied in my journals so that those who were reading them didn't think that I had any ill will toward them, that I wasn't upset at all. I had to lie in all these places in my life, but I'm really creative. And so as I flipped that script and said, hold on, I don't have to keep lying, but I can see the strength in that shameful behavior. Next was hyperindependence. I think we all know this one really, really well. I can do it myself. I don't need any help. In my past, asking for help could be dangerous. But what would be the flip side of that? I can be reliable because I will show up. I learned that about myself, which means I could apply it in other places. Hyperindependence, of course, though, is lonely. It's a place where you don't lean in and ask for help when there are people who want to help you. Hyperindependence says, I got this. I don't need to trust you. It's a learned behavior out of trauma. What if I flipped the script? What if I said, actually, that hyperindependence means that if no one else on the team is able to help, I can do it. I can help. And the more you learn how to lean on help and understand that I don't have to be ashamed about that, the easier it is to then start to trust people and to lean in. Doesn't mean you have to move the refrigerator by yourself, but it does mean that you can be a reliable person. One of the biggest strengths of mine that people have always called a flaw is my ability to overthink. I actually call that my superpower now. Angela, you need to calm down. You're overthinking everything again. In my trauma, I had to overthink. I had to think of every possible outcome for anything I said or did. Overthinking, though, means I can look at all of the outcomes that are possible for business, for a life circumstance, for this moment in time. And I promise, you want the overthinker on your team. The reason I started doing this work is because I realized that I could go to therapy and I could do all of the things that we're told to do, but if that shame was still on my back, I wasn't going to be able to just positive affirmation it away. I wasn't going to just be able to think happy thoughts and things would be okay. So the survivor's resume for me gave me a tangible thing that I could do to look at. These are the things I felt shame around. These are the opposite, flipping the script sides of that, where I can say, actually, this is a strength. Now, it doesn't mean I'm going to go through life and keep lying because I'm so creative. It just means that I don't have to carry the weight of that shame every single day. 24 people per minute are abused, which means 24 people per minute are carrying immense shame. That's heartbreaking. If 24 people per minute are carrying that shame, it makes me wonder how many are simply not thriving and living their lives even after surviving. Our goals are not just to survive. We want to live and we want to thrive. Anais Nin says, shame is the lie someone once told you about yourself. And through this journey of healing, I've learned that sometimes that someone becomes ourselves. We carry that shame and that story that somebody else told us about ourselves, and it becomes our own voices. We begin to live and lean into that story that's not true. We begin to tell ourselves that maybe I am just a liar. Maybe I am just anxious. Maybe I should just go. The survivor's resume for me, creating that first for myself and then sharing with other people, I've been able to see the impact in myself, everything from being able to tell the truth. No, thank you, Girl Scouts. I don't want any cookies today. To being able to step into the spotlight of my life. To be able to break free from that shame that said, you're not worth it. You're no good. Why are you here? You're worthless. Not true. None of that's true. The survivor's resume impact with the people that I get to work with gives them the opportunity to lean into that same real truth, that they are worthy of being here. They are worthy of being seen, heard, loved, standing in their own spotlight. I want to share a little bit of my survivor resume with you today. Summary of qualifications. I can handle conflict resolution. I'm creative. I'm responsible and timely. I'm deadline driven. My experience? 1975 to present day, survivor. Still standing. My qualifications, education, doctorate in life, school of hard knocks. I have embraced the beautiful parts of my life. And I've also embraced the parts that were incredibly hard. It's from those incredibly hard places that I can pull those strengths that were once defined as weaknesses. It's from that difficult place in my life where I can say, that person survived, and we're going to bring all of that in to a place where we can now thrive. My survivor's resume is printed and on the wall next to my desk so I can see it every single day, to be reminded of who I am, especially on my hardest days, and honestly, who I've always been. I was never any of those negative things. Brene Brown studies this topic of shame, and she's shared with us through the years about how shame keeps us depressed, anxious, hidden away, fear of judgment. I didn't want to stay hidden anymore. Stepping out and speaking about these topics is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I'm a person who prefers to be in the background, working with others to help them heal their traumas. But every single time that I think I'm going to hide away, I receive a reminder that I was born to be here in this place right here and right now. And it's on my survivor's resume, so it's right there. I am the CEO of my life. I get to choose that I don't have to sit down and be quiet. I get to choose how I'm going to thrive. So I invite you today, do your survivor's resume. Whether you have trauma in your background or not, take something that you might feel some shame around, put it down on paper, and find ways to flip that. Find ways to look at what would be the positive side of whatever that thing you're carrying shame for. Do the work. Put it on paper. Frame it so you can see it. This isn't about tricking your brain. This is about letting go of shame. Survivors are here to thrive. We take our broken, messy past and we build thriving, beautiful futures. And we can only do that when we release that shame. I invite you to do the work. I invite you to show up for yourself. And I invite you to say yes to your strengths. Thank you.